Hello there, and welcome back to Gatabud. My son and his friends and their parents are all still playing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and the number one question that I get is how to get the Master Sword. And today, my son and I wanted to share our method to very easily get it as early as possible in the game. Before we get started, let's talk about what the Master Sword does and does not do. It is not shown, but it has a base damage of 30. If you are around gloom or any sort of important enemies, it will begin to glow, and that means that its base damage is 45. So the best way to utilize the Master Sword is by fusing your highest damage fusion to it, like a silver Lionel horn, and now we have a grand total of an 85 damage weapon. Now, there are better weapons in the game, and a lot of people will tell you that the Master Sword isn't that good. Those people do not have children if they are saying that. If you have ever played with kids, you know that they are always weapon starved because the weapons break. And something that can regenerate once every 10 minutes with 30 damage is absolutely invaluable. So I am a big fan of getting it as early as possible on my son's save. Lastly, to start the 10-minute recharge timer, you have to fully break the Master Sword. Do not leave it just on red. It won't just regenerate durability on its own. That's a common source of confusion I've seen so far. Now, how do we actually get the Master Sword? There is really only one true requirement to pull this off, and that is a second full stamina wheel. So after you leave the Great Sky Island, it forced you to do the first 4 shrines to get a 4th heart. After you descend from the Great Sky Island, you need to complete 20 shrines and use all of them to upgrade stamina to get a second wheel. The second requirement for early game acquisition is a little more vague. It is the ability to be very high in the sky. And early game, the only location that checks this box is the shrine above the Great Sky Island that you get at the end of the tutorial. So this can accomplish acquiring the Master Sword because the location is extraordinarily high, but there's only about a 10% chance that the location is actually nearby here without getting spoilery. So this video is going to go into a way that replaces waiting around here into productivity and getting a really good start to the game and access to a lot of the map. And then at the culmination of our prep, there will be a moment where height is no longer a factor and you can easily acquire the Master Sword. Now, to get 20 shrines, you're going to have to travel all across Hyrule anyways. So this really kind of goes well with this optional requirement that I am going to start now. That is the 12 Tears of the Kingdom main story quest. Now, I'm going to show you how to start this without any spoilers. If you are very spoiler averse, I would recommend just not watching this video. But I tried my best to go about this in a way that doesn't spoil anything for you. The easiest way to get started on this is to blast off out of the Lookout Landing Skyview Tower. And as you exit the tower, you immediately see this right here. You're going to want to fly towards this, and I'm going to go turbo speed doing my little airborne glitch to speed up air travel using the glide armor. Pro tip, enter a dive by pressing R and then press B followed by X like this, and you will be gliding at roughly double speed for a little bit. Bet you didn't know that. As you approach this platform, if you have not already started the quest, there will be a main character of this game standing right here, and you will be asked to use Ultra Hand to rebuild a hot air balloon, and you will ascend up into the sky with that character and overlook this drawing on the ground. This is one of the 12 tiers of the kingdom, and this is the official way to start that quest line. Now, if you were doing this in the main story, you would be in a hot air balloon looking down, and you will see a lot of teardrop markings, but only one of them is filled in. This is what you want to look for all of these drawings in the ground. So we've identified that one. You dive back down, and if you haven't already collected the tier, the option to press A will be right here, and this is your first tier. Now, the next part of this story part occurs in the Forgotten Temple, which is directly north of where you just got the first tier. I recommend that you get this Skyview Tower first. Go to the chasm entrance right here at the bottom and begin progressing through the temple up until this point. If you want to properly do this the official story way, you need to talk to the main character that has moved here now that you rode in the hot air balloon with, and then you will find this map at the way back of the temple, and it will show you where the next 10 tiers are, in addition the 11th one that you just got. Now, at this point, you are ready to begin collecting the 12 tiers. Now, you have seen the locations on that map in the temple. This is how they correspond in the real map. So you've gotten this one already, and you've gotten this Skyview Tower and this Skyview Tower. So these are kind of your entry points to begin progressing through the map. The first thing I would recommend doing is blasting out of the Lindor Brow Tower and completing the Courage Island part to get your first glide armor item. This will make this a lot easier, and I go into depth on the glide armor in my separate glide armor video. Then from there, once you have completed that shrine, you can now easily access this tier right here and this tier right here. The tower here is not necessarily needed to complete this, but I recommend doing it. My son kind of ran past it on his playthrough and just went straight for the tier right here. So these 3 knocked out. You actually have 4 knocked out now. And as you get pretty close to the forest, you want to go ahead and knock out this one plus this Skyview Tower, because if you blast out of this Skyview Tower, you get your second piece of glide armor up here and another shrine. Now, this save has every shrine unlocked and completed in the game, so you can see how plentiful these shrines are dotted along this path. Now, after completing this part, at this point we are going to begin using elevation to attack the remaining tiers. The Great Sky Island's 4th shrine is going to be your starting point, and immediately you have extremely easy access to this tier and this Skyview Tower. You can go ahead and get those right now if you want, or save them for later. I recommend actually doing this first. Now, the next thing that you should do to make this a lot easier is to actually go to the final shrine of the Great Sky Island and make sure that you have 1 Zonai fan. At this point, you should have 2 out of 3 of the glide armor. I don't remember which ones there are, but I'm wearing 2 of them. And you need to take out your Zonai fan. put it on one of these free gliders. And we are going to make this thing fly without much assistance. We want to line up and be facing this island that way. And what you do is you press the up button on your D-pad to send this thing out as far as it can go. And then you pull it back in like this to where you can rest it. Stand on it and then use recall. I have now canceled recall, and we are off. We just took off in a direction that we weren't supposed to be able to go on. And you just want to stand kind of in this spot right here. And I like to kill the battery right before it hits 0, because if this glider starts flashing, then I can hit it again and get one last quick burst. Do that little glide trick I told you about, and you can get some more speed to make this more accessible without using any food or stamina upgrades. We're going to try to do this in one wheel. Okay, so you might need a little bit of stamina food to make this happen if you haven't done any upgrades at all, but it's very doable. Now, once you arrive at the bottom entrance, this gate is closed if you're a first-time arrival, but there's a shrine in there. You can press A on this, and you might recognize this from my Zonai armor video. We're just going to knock out the first piece there. Unlock the shrine after going through all the wind gales and falling down the middle. Avoid the lasers. And the Zonai armor piece, you need to ascend right there behind the shrine. And then you have a wonderful access point to a lot of the rest of the map. So you can now just exit through this gate and walk right out of here. With 2 out of 3 glide armor, I recommend, though, riding this back out up to the top, because you get a ton of elevation. And now we are extremely high up, and we are overlooking the Mount Lanayru Skyview Tower, which climbing the mountain is a little annoying to do. Take out a glider and fan again. We're going to do this exact same thing we did before. You get recall ready. And you hit the fan right before you cancel recall. And we're off. One of these basic gliders is enough to reach all the way to the mountain. And after blasting out of the Skyview Tower, you now have the ability to go get the final glide armor piece over here. I would do that, and then you might see below, there's another tier right there. So you need to go this way anyways. At this point, you should be 3 out of 3 on glide armor, and it's time to finish off the remaining tiers. You will have pretty easy access once you have 3 out of 3 glide, just from going out the Lookout Landing Skyview Tower to get to this tier. You probably want to get this Skyview Tower while you are right next to it. You're so close, it's silly not to get it. And then you want to get this Skyview Tower as well. It's extremely important. It's required. You need to just get it while you're over here. And at this point, you can also go back to the smokestack island and use it to go south to this pretty out of the way tier pretty easily. So you can land at this Skyview Tower and then continue your progress over there. If you haven't already gotten this tier and this Skyview Tower, go back to the Great Sky Island and do so. You can also easily get to this tier from jumping off the Great Sky Island. And then for this final out of the way tier, you're going to want to either try to go on foot, but I don't like it because of how high up this tower is. So a better alternative is to do that same airplane thing from this shrine again, go west. You can make it to this point more than likely, and then you can do the airplane thing again to go over to this tower and get the 11th and most out of the way tier. And at this point, you will receive a cutscene, and at this point in the video, I will begin to go into much more spoilery material. A 12th tier has now appeared after that cutscene. You need to make sure that you have this Skyview Tower unlocked before viewing the 12th tier cutscene. And if you are a first timer on this game and you don't want anything spoiled, go ahead and press A on that cutscene before going any further in this video, because spoilers begin now. You have been warned. The remainder of this video is full spoiler. Also, before pressing A on this final tier, make sure to drop a hard save in case you mess this up. You will only get one chance to make this easy. The only prerequisite that is set in stone is that you need a second full stamina wheel, which means you have to complete 20 shrines after you leave the Great Sky Island minimum. My son's save only has glide armor on top of that, the Master Sword, and no Zonai battery upgrades whatsoever. And we did this without any food or anything special. The Master Sword is located in the head of the Light Dragon that you saw circling around the Great Sky Island as you did these 4 shrines to start the game. After you descend down into Hyrule, the Light Dragon will begin to follow a path around Hyrule that crosses above the 12 tiers. Additionally, it will fly very high in the sky. The path takes about an hour to complete, and without a lot of Zonai related upgrades, it's very difficult to get to it early game. The only spot in the game that is reasonably high enough to pull it off is if you luck out enough where it's crossing right about here in this area to go between these tiers above the Great Sky Island. The final Great Sky Island shrine is reasonably high enough to get it. So if you see it over here, lucky you, way to go. If you want a real way that works 100% of the time, keep following along. At this point, let's let my son take over on the gameplay duties. He loves collecting the 12 tiers. He loves collecting the Master Sword. This is probably the 4th time we've done this, and he likes to just go straight into this part of the game. This is one of his favorite parts. So I have cut out the cutscene shown by clicking A on this tier. we wanted to make this video because we wanted to show his friends and their parents how we do this. And now we see that the light dragon has appeared. And I can say at this point, without worrying about spoilers, if you have gotten to this point in the game, you have realized that the Master Sword is in the head of the light dragon. So, that event allowed a very rare low altitude access point for this dragon, because it was a one-time thing commemorating you getting the 12th tier. Now, this is not the only way to make the light dragon descend, but it is the easiest one that doesn't involve having to defeat any difficult bosses. And that's all I'm going to say without adding a spoiler that's not relevant to this video. So you need to immediately teleport to the Ulri Mountain Skyview Tower, and you will see that the dragon is still very low, and 2 stamina wheels is more than enough to get back there. My son is going to skip landing on that little sky island right there, but it's a great place to refuel and let your stamina recharge if you would like. He's just going to go straight for it and get the sword, and I'm going to let this play out and run unedited in its entirety because you can't replay this part on the Pura Pad, and he would like to watch this again. So this part is just for my son. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. Let me know below if you were able to replicate this method. You should be able to, because like I said in the thumbnail, a 5-year-old can do this.
Link. The Master Sword. Your sword. She is the key to destroying the Demon King. He defeated her before, but a long slumber will heal these grievous wounds. And when you two next face the Demon King, you will have my strength to help you through her. Link, you are our final hope. I pray this sword reaches you in the future.